Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Joining us today, all the way from Charleston, no longer in Boston, Matt Morizio is here to talk about breaking down some of those money myths, some of the money mindsets that we have. Honored to be here. Really excited to chat with you. You have a pretty unique background playing baseball professionally for a number of years. Where did this come from? Like you this was a childhood dream to play baseball. The financial world was not necessarily something that you were considering getting into, but walk us through the college years, that process, and kind of how you fell into what you're doing now, man.
Yeah, sure, man. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
I would say it's not too often that we get too many professional athletes coming through here. We've had a few, but it's super special. I love the professional athlete world and just like the team mindset, the just the grit that it takes to perform at a level that you were. Sorry to interrupt, man. I just wanted to drop that.
Yeah. No, man. Well, thanks for that. It is a really unique experience because you're playing at the highest level with quite literally some of the best in the world, like the best in the world at what they do, among the best in the world, right? Statistically. But when you're in the minor leagues, especially at the low level minor leagues, you're playing in stadiums, going on buses, getting equipment, eating peanut butter and jellies, like food, all of these stadiums that like were not even near as nice as your college stadiums potentially. So it's this weird position where you think you made it, quote unquote. You're in the professional ranks now, and all of a sudden things got worse around you, your environment. But I will tell you, the level of competition certainly elevated. So that was really fun, really humbling, because I realized, dang, there are, even though that we're a small sliver of the population that actually is among the best in the world at playing your sport, there are still plenty of guys out there that are way better than me at this. So
there's like that top kind of 1% of the 1%, and there's even a huge gap between that. Like you look at, all the guys that play golf, and then you look at Tiger Woods and what made Tiger. And I was listening to a podcast with Ed Milet, and he was referencing Tiger Woods, and he was saying it's there's debate around, is it everything that has is your identity as an athlete, do you tie that to the amount of tournaments that you won, the amount of golf balls that you hit, or the amount of major tournaments that you've played in? And the difference between the guys that are playing in major tournaments and they're winning major tournaments on their own, and the amount of guys that are playing local level tournaments, still really good and making great money, but there's a bit of a difference there in the amount of golf balls that were hit and the amount of just like obsession that you have to kind of be that 1% of the 1%. It's a very, very small population, and Tiger Woods is one person of 8 billion people, and so it's a pretty unique position. So having when you're trying to stack up against Tiger's his career, it's a pretty tough thing to do. And I think there's a lot of comparison that people have when they're like, not even in athletes, but in business, right? They're comparing, I'm starting out my business, I've got through my first year, second year, whatever, but why am I not as far ahead as these other guys that I want to be? It's like, well, they've put in 20 years already, and they've been through these hurdles. But yeah, man, I see that.
Yeah, I would say that what's interesting, having played, and it's directly applicable to business and life, is that for all of the Tiger Woods of the world, there are a whole bunch of other athletes and players that are actually not head and shoulders exceptionally more talented than the rest. And they work hard. So let me say what I'm about to say with like a caveat. Like, yes, you have to work hard. That's a prerequisite. Yes, you have to be talented. That's a prerequisite. So like what I'm about to say, you have to have that little asterisk to say like, yeah, these guys are exceptionally talented and they do work really hard. No doubt. But once you're there at that, that elite level, very few of them stand out as like, dang, that guy's way more gifted than the rest. The reality is, the ones that made the big leagues that I played with, 99% of them, they were the ones that were the most consistent at 7:05, which is when the game started, as they were at 5 o'clock when they were taking batting practice. A common insult in baseball was calling somebody a 5 o'clock hitter, because they were somebody who could hit every ball out of the park at 5 o'clock when the guy was throwing a nice BP at you, but couldn't touch it at 7:05 when someone's throwing 98 with movement on it.
Oh man, that's like when I jump onto the driving range and hit a few warm up balls before you get onto the golf course and play, and you're hitting them like nobody's business off of the
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You're a
then
driving range hitter or something.
yeah, then you just start duffing them in the woods and in the forest, and you have a shit game, and you're wondering why, what happened, because you're doing so
Yep.
well at the driving range.
But that's the thing, is that like at that level, it's not that those guys that make it to the big leagues are so much more talented than the rest. They can just compete with that same level of consistency at the highest level the most amount of times. Like, so if they can take the same swing 97 times out of 100, whereas maybe I took that same swing that I did at 5 o'clock as I do at 7, maybe it's more like 85 times out of 100. And that little difference is the difference that makes them a big leaguer and me a low-level minor leaguer that never cracked out of it, and that's the reality. But that's the truth in business and in life too. Like, the ones who make it, quote unquote, sell their business, make a bunch of money, whatever it looks like to you, are the ones that put in the work consistently over a long period of time and can stay consistent no matter the external environment, right? No matter if somebody's throwing 98 at you or 65. They can just do the reps the same all the time, And that was some major takeaway for me when I left the game. I was like, all right, well, I know that to win at whatever I'm going to pursue next, I don't need to be the best, the smartest, have the most relationships that will open the most doors, or whatever it looks like. I know that if I just am the most consistent, couple that with my work ethic, like, I will figure it out eventually, so long as I don't quit. And then I can reach whatever the big league's equivalent is of my world.
We were talking offline, and I mentioned I was a big Bruce Lee guy, and one of the things that he says is fear not the man that trains 10,000 kicks once, but the man that trains one kick 10,000 times.
There you go. I love that. I love that quote, and I've heard that before, and that's exactly it. That's this point. There was one guy, Tim Lincecum was his name. I played summer ball with him. He was a pitcher for the Giants, and his nickname was the Freak. He had one of the most one of the hottest starts to a professional career of anybody I've ever seen. Cy Young winner, Rookie of the Year, MVP, World Series MVP multiple times, strikeout leader. Like, the guy killed it. He was more talented than everybody else. Like, when batters got into the box, I was a catcher. He's the only guy I've ever played against, and we were playing in the Cape Cod League at the time, which is like the most prestigious summer baseball league in college. Guys, multiple first round. He was a first rounder. There was that league was full of top 3-round draft picks. Guys would get into the batter's box when I was catching and Tim Lincecum was pitching, and they actually out loud said to me, like, I've got no chance. And at that level too, like, baseball's such a head game. If your confidence is out, you already with the most confidence are going to fail. If you're the best, you're going to fail 70% of the time. So if you walk into the box and you don't have the confidence, I mean, forget it, just leave. But he was the only player. I played with thousands of guys, dozens that have made the big leagues. Like, he's the only guy that I've ever played with that was like, you are significantly more talented than the rest of us. Otherwise, it was, no one's more exceptionally more talented. They all have their own gifts. It was just the most consistent guys made the league.
There are outliers for sure.
Yeah, there are the
In,
Tiger Woods of the world, are the outliers, no doubt.
yeah, in
Um,
sports and business, in finance, everywhere.
yeah, the Elon Musks of the world, like I actually found a lot of grace in comfort knowing when I finally figured out entrepreneurship as like my new sport, I realized I don't have to be. There's very few Elon Musks of the world, just like there's very few Tim Lincecums of the world. I don't need to come up with a world-changing idea in order to be an entrepreneur. I just need to take an existing business and craft it and curate it and make it my own and improve upon it. That's entrepreneurship. And as soon as I learned that, I was like, oh, I can do that.
And I think people look at guys like Elon Musk, and I appreciate Elon to the end of the earth and to Mars and back, but he's, would I change my life for his? Probably not. And he's
No.
said that multiple times. It's like, nobody wants to be me. Nobody understands me. Nobody understands the storm that goes on through my head. Nobody could handle it. I wouldn't, wish this upon anybody. And
Yeah.
there's probably some truth to that. But you see guys on all over Instagram and social media, and they're like, train like Elon Musk does. Learn to be these guys. Like this is what you want to do. The Musks and the Bezos and everything. It's like, no doubt those guys are certainly inspiring, but it. I don't think that everybody would be willing to sacrifice probably what they did to get to their point. And I think that there's something to be said, certainly about consistency, about
Mm-hmm.
resourcefulness, but there's also some luck, and there's also some timing. And
Whew.
those,
Yep.
that combination of all sprinkled together can, make magic happen
You
for
got it.
a person, for an organization, whatever that is. If you're looking at Blockbuster, for example, like, cool, it was a great business for a time, for a
Yep.
period, but it was too big of a ship. They didn't see Netflix coming, and they
Right.
weren't willing to pivot, and whatever. But there is,
Right.
if the Blockbuster idea, if that had come out, the idea of going to a store and renting a video, if that was the idea, the concept that had come out after Netflix was already in place, it wouldn't have happened. But it was right timing with the technology that we had,
Mm-hmm.
right market demand for what people wanted to do. They could sort of paint this picture of going into, renting a video on a Friday night, renting a couple of them with your family, make it a thing, give away some free popcorn. Like, it was a cool experience
Yep.
for a moment. But yeah, consistency, hard work, discipline, that's kind of the foundational stuff. But you kind of like mix that with, right place, right time, bit of luck for no reason. Man,
Yep.
that happens. And,
You're right.
even genetics too, right? Like, you're talking about hard work, but if I know I'm never going to dunk, right? I'm
Yep.
never going to jump on a court, and I'm never going to, an NBA height basketball hoop. I'm never going to dunk a basketball. I could say it, and I could work through my head, and I could try it, a million times, but there's chances are, like, I'm just not tall enough.
Yep.
I'm probably not meant to jump high enough, but that's also genetics. So I gotta work with what I got, man.
Yeah, you got it. You said something at the beginning, and I didn't answer the question about identity and then the transition from sports to this. But I will say, I just wanted to touch on that. I encountered what I've learned, at least personally, I think it's a real problem, is I wrapped my identity up in being a baseball player. And it wasn't even it was that I did it. So let me rephrase that. I did it, but I also, had I even not wanted to do it, it was hard to avoid because, let's say, for example, off season, I fly back to my hometown and I go to get to a restaurant. It was often like that I would encounter somebody that I knew because it was a small town, and they were like, "Oh, I remember you're the baseball player, right?" Like, that was the first words out of their mouth. So it was like
Yeah.
that identity chased me, And I was the baseball player for 20 plus years of my life until I wasn't. And I had this moment of like, I get this call from, his name Scott Sharp. He was the assistant GM of player development at the time. And he's with the Royals still. He's actually, I think, the GM now, or assistant GM for the big league club. But he called me the evening before 2011 spring training to tell me I was going to get released the next day. And he did that out of respect, which I really appreciate because I was in the league. I was with them for 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
So I was a bit of a dinosaur relative to like the rest of the minor leaguers, because usually couple of years, you had to move up or you're out. So the fact that I kind of stayed low-level minors for 5 years was like, that was an anomaly already. But he called me to tell me that, hey, tomorrow we're going to release you, instead of me showing up at 7 a.m., getting tapped on the shoulder to go upstairs, to be handed a plane ticket and a black trash bag, which is literally what happens. So to save me that embarrassment, he called me to tell me so I could go into the park later in the morning when everybody was already on the field stretching. But I remember I was newly married at the time, and my wife, after that phone call, we were having dinner at the home we were renting. And I remember going into the bedroom, because I was renting it with teammates, because you can't afford to rent it yourself. So I had to leave, like remove myself from that dinner. And I remember just breaking down, crying and hugging her, thinking to myself, like, who am I if I'm not a baseball player? You know, and that was a real problem, because baseball was what I did. It wasn't who I was. But
Yeah.
wrongly, I wrapped my identity up in what I did as opposed to who I was. So I really went on a journey of figuring out, like, what really was, like, what is my foundation? Who am I? That is one of the many things I do. So for me, it really became learning how to be rooted in faith and thinking about, like, there's multifacets to who I am. It's not just the one thing I do is who I am. And if I don't have that, I'm no longer me. And eventually that journey from getting released from spring of 2011, we got pregnant with our first child that summer while sleeping on families' couches trying to find a home, because we didn't plan to get fired.
Yeah.
Released is just the baseball term of being fired. So I
Yeah.
didn't plan to get fired, but like we were newlyweds, no job, trying to figure out how to complete my degree, and then we get pregnant. And it was this series of like trying to figure out, what do I do? I went into finance staffing. If you needed a temporary accountant, I was the guy, like $100 a day, 12 meetings a week in person, just pure sales.
Yeah.
And in all of those meetings, I met a managing partner of a small investment firm that was like, hey, you'd be great in this business. And one thing led to another. Through a lot of prayer, man, I just like realized I'm supposed to go here and I don't really know why. And that took me on a real crazy financial journey, some real valleys, to now launching my own wealth management firm, which feels so much more like a calling than a career at this point. But I'm smart to say that is not who I am. It's just one of the things I do, right? Like there's a lot of parts to me. So my identity is not wrapped up in being a business owner, a wealth management firm, a financial advisor, whatever. Like those are all things, parts of me, but it's no longer my identity.
Real quick before we get back to the show, if you have heard anything on this podcast that has resonated with you, or if it's helped you in any way, appreciate more than anything in the world if you could go hit that subscribe button or leave us a review. It helps us tremendously. I want to go back to being able to continue to serve and do more and more and help out and get bigger and bigger guests on, better and better. The only way that I can do that is with your help. I'm so honored to be here. Let's get back to the show. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. That's super powerful, because having that ability to release yourself from this false identity, or the identity of who you felt that you weren't once were, it's like giving up a huge part of you. But yeah, understanding, and I think, understanding the amount of pressure that people have, and seeing in, you in your position, but people in general, right? Like they'll work through, the better part of their career. They'll get started in something. They'll turn 40 or 50 and realize, man, I'm not this person anymore. I don't like doing what I'm doing, but it's all I know. It's who, it's been on my business card for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what I would be without this. And you go back to a high school reunion and they say, oh yeah, you're a real estate agent, or, oh, you're a painter, or you're a plumber, or, you're whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But getting wrapped up in that identity and being able to release that, like you said, to find out, go back to that foundation of who you are, and know that you're so much more than just a ball player, so much more than just a financial advisor, so much more than, in my case, a home builder, right? It's a tough thing for a lot of people to do, especially because they spend so much time day in, day out, week in, week out, all year long, chasing this profession, trying to get better, trying to hone their skills. And when you spend so much time in that area, you start to forget sometimes about who you are and why you're doing it, and why you got started in the first place.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I've seen so many guys, in such a tragedy to me. I hate it. I've seen so many of my former teammates, because they were so wrapped up in being a baseball player, that they didn't believe that they were capable of anything else. And think about how sad that is, how tragic that is, where you've got this elite mindset to become a pro athlete. You've got to like have this against all odds mentality, and you overcome those odds to reach this like growth minded bubble of people that like very few people in the world even get to be around or even embody that mindset. And then all of a sudden they get released from that thing that they were so consistent on and so believed in themselves in, and they don't think they can do anything else. So what they end up doing is falling into coaching or scouting or maybe chasing a front office job or something, because they just didn't believe that they were capable anymore, because their identity was a baseball player. And if they're not in baseball, what do they know? What can they do? When like you and I know, that mindset can propel you to be excellent in so many areas, including fatherhood and being a husband and being a business owner and a friend. But like you have to detach from the emotion of I'm a baseball player to know like who am I, what type of unique wiring do I have, and then how do you apply that into other areas of life. And it's almost a cop out that they don't, I hate to see it, they don't go on that deep introspective journey you're talking about to be able to believe that they're capable of more. And then they end up settling in baseball doing things that don't fulfill them anymore, but because that's what they feel like, that's all they know and that's who they were. So they just become this like high school coach or this area scout for some pro team for the next 3 decades, and they travel all the time and they don't see their family and they're not happy, but like it's baseball and that's who I am and that's what I know. So like I hate that, man. I can't stand when my teammates who I know are capable of more just they fell into staying in baseball for the sake of it.
I have friends that are ex-Olympic athletes, and one of the things that they talk about, and I've talked about with them, is nobody prepares you for, you know, year 9. And after you've done a couple of Olympic runs and you're training all
Wow.
year for a one day out of 4 years, and once that's over, it's kind of over. And then you're questioning, all right, wait a minute, maybe I got a medal. Maybe I got a tattoo with a few Olympic rings on it. This is, branded on me. This is special. But if I'm not an Olympic athlete, something that I've worked my whole life for, what am I? They don't teach
Right.
you. They don't teach you what to do after that happens. They don't talk about
Yeah.
the transition because they don't want to. They don't want to take the drive away from you that there is a possibility of something else after the fact. It's like, go win the championship, get the gold medal, break the records. Like that needs to be your only
Mm.
focus. But this is only for a very small blip of time. What happens after that? What do you do? How do you transition? The other conversation that I've had, and I would love your perspective on, is they don't teach you how to handle success, and they don't teach you how to handle money. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of
That's
a lot of
that's true.
athletes that get into they've get signed their first deal, get their
Yep.
first contract, get signed onto a team, they start making money that they never thought about before. They go out, they buy the house for their mom, they buy the car. Like, they don't put money away, and they don't teach people how to go from nothing to all of a sudden now we have an abundance of cash, how to
Mm.
handle that, where that mindset comes from, and also this new identity that they're now becoming. Right, they become this
Well
this
said.
person with all of this money, kind of being this person that came from nothing. And now all of a sudden they can't go back. They got the gold chains, they got the rings, they got the, whatever. And all of a sudden that paycheck stops coming in. And now who are they?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
they've taken it from one extreme to the next. And now all of a sudden we're kind of starting to work backwards. Where do you go from there?
So true, man. The minor league, or I should say the spring training parking lot, is like tale of two cities. It's two worlds, man. It's like legitimately two ends of the spectrum, because you're either a big leaguer or a top round draft pick, in which case you're driving, at the time it was hooked up Escalades or Lamborghinis, and you were driving like you knew who owned those cars, or you were seeing beat up Toyota pickups, old Fords, like Toyota Hondas. That was the minor leaguer. That was just driving across the country trying to make it.
Yeah.
There was no in between, you know? Um, and my challenge is minor leaguers that you make. So just for perspective, I want people to understand, if you don't sign in the first handful of rounds, 3, 4, 5 rounds maybe, but really first 3 rounds in the MLB draft, you don't really make a whole lot of money on a signing bonus. Everybody, because it's a union, and people have heard like players union go on strike. It's a union. It operates as a union does. They have a set pay grade and pay scale in the big leagues and the minor leagues. So there's a league minimum in the big leagues. There is a this many years at this level of service, you get paid this much. Now it's a little different now. They get paid a little more because they had a class action lawsuit about underpaying people. But at the time, my first paycheck was $600 after taxes for 2 weeks of work. So that was $1,200 a month for 5 months of the year. You only paid during the season. You're not paid in the off season. You have health insurance 12 months a year, but they only pay you during the months you're at work, that you're playing games. So that's a sub 10-figure sub 5-figure salary. If anybody's paying attention, that's less than $10,000 a year. So if you're on that spectrum, you didn't sign for a lot of money, you don't really think about money because you don't have any. You're just trying to figure out how to squeeze a quarter out of every nickel you got. And then you're on the other end. Imagine if you do sign as a minor leaguer or as a high schooler, or even you can sign at a high school, you can sign out of your third year of college. Either way, 18 or 21 years old, imagine signing for $2, $3, $5, $7, $10 million. You still don't have a different mindset around money because you're coming from high school where you're getting an allowance. One day you're getting an allowance, or you have a part-time job as a ice cream scooper, and now you're making $10 million with one paycheck, or they split it in a couple. But still, that's a big shift in income without a shift in identity. And if you don't change in rapid succession who you are internally, you will lose that money. It's the same mindset that like why 80% of lottery winners within 5 years lose all of their lottery winnings, is because they don't change their internal thermostat, their internal identity, to become the person who is worthy and capable of managing that level of wealth. And my real problem is advisors in the role of managing high school, college draftees who have that much money, even early league athletes. Their pitch to the athlete is like, you worry about what you need to do on the field. Let me handle the money stuff. I'll pay your bills. I'll get your car insurance. I'll do all the things. That part of your life is handled. So all you need to do is focus on you being the best player you can be, which is very attractive to an 18-year-old that just signed for a bunch of money and doesn't know a thing about it. But when that 18-year-old doesn't make the big leagues, or makes the big leagues and only plays a couple years and is now 24, 25, and doesn't even know who's their insurance carrier is on their car or how to find it because they've never had to even know about it, there's still a high school mindset on money, yet they're a multimillionaire, but not for long probably, because now that they're not making that money anymore, right? Like the advisor, the athlete might start to say, hey, you're not making the same money. You need to start to take care of some of this. I'm no longer performing these services for you because you can't afford to pay for them anymore. And now they get hit in the face with like, well, shoot, how do I do this? I don't have a clue. So really, like, you need to work on who you are and your identity around money before you, or really short order after you see that windfall of cash. I always say identity precedes destiny. You have to work on who you are first to become that person that is capable and can manage that level of wealth before the level of wealth really hits you. In the baseball player's mind approach, typically they don't get it. They get a big paycheck, but they better start working on it fast. So I think the best role an advisor in their life can play is like, let me teach you how this works. Let me teach you how to manage this. Let me teach you how the long game looks so that you don't become 28 working at Kmart or Walmart or whatever to try to pay some bills because you spent all your money because you felt like it was in forever money.
And one of the common conversations that I have with people is that I wish somebody taught me about money when I was younger. I wish somebody sat me down and showed me the path and taught me how to think about money, because you're right? You get to this point where now you're 26, you're coming into some money, or you're 30 or 40 or whatever it is, you're finally making some money, but you don't really know what to do with it. You don't know whether it's you should just store it under a pillow in your bed. You don't know if you should put it into, RRSPs, or here in Canada we have the TFSAs. You're down in the States. I don't know what your equivalent would be there, but actually, what is your equivalent down in the States? The tax-free savings account. What do you guys typically
Um,
use? You have the
we have a
401k,
Roth.
you have the
They're
Roth
called
IRA.
Roth. They're retirement accounts. Roth
Yeah,
IRA might be a similar one where you put the money in after tax, and it's a
yeah,
retirement account, but it can grow
yeah,
tax
yeah.
free.
But there's this common thread of, I don't really know what to do with my money to make it work for me
Yeah.
in the way
Yeah.
that I want it to. Do I invest it in real estate? Do I invest it in crypto? Do I, is it NFTs? Is the bank, going to go under? Do I give them the money? Do I just put it all in a savings account or a checking account? Are credit cards good? Like all of these things, right? Is debt bad? Is debt good? How do we use debt? I've heard this term, right? I would use debt to make money. You make money, you get money to make money, and all of these things, these philosophies that start running around in people's heads, but there's no real clear path. Nobody has sat them down and walked them through the process of what all of that means. And as far as for financial advising, man, it's one thing to handle money from people that have money, but it's another thing to educate and get out there like
Yes.
you're doing right now and talk to people about when you have money, how you make money, how you need to think about money, how you can save it. Because I look at my daughters and they're young now, and I don't know what cost of housing is going to look like when they're younger, right? I have a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old, and I'm already looking into the future and thinking, okay, well, what is this going to look like for them?
Yeah.
What does this mean? Like, we've seen costs of housing increase significantly since, over the last decade. It's been insane. I looked at my grandfather has a house. He's my last remaining grandparent. He's 95 now, I think, at the time we're recording this.
Wow.
Love my grandfather to death. And I had the original deed to his house that he bought for $16,500.
Man.
And he was able to buy that in cash, or they had a 5-year mortgage at that time. And that
Wow.
was, and 5 years, thinking about somebody that's going to dedicate and make monthly payments for 5 years, that was a long time for a house. And now 30 years, 40 years, 50 years down in the,
Right.
down in the States they're offering. And it's kind of insane. And I just hope that I have my message to them will be able to get through in a way that they understand how to manage money and how to think about money.
So good. I resonate with all of what you're saying so strongly because I was that person. I was the person that grew up fearful of money, had no idea about it. My family didn't talk about money. My parents divorced early, so I grew up with my mom. Most of the time, I would spend Wednesdays and every other weekend with my dad. And most of the time, my upbringing around money was fear-based. It was worry, fear, hoarding. Like in New England, in the winter, it's cold. And we lived in a house that had oil heat. And I remember one time getting home from college and going into my house, and it was cold and dark because the electricity was out, lights were off to save electricity. My mom's the only one in the house at the time. I walk down a hallway and to the right to get to where like our TV was. And before I could get into that room, there's this big, heavy blanket draped in the doorway. It was just an open door frame, but there was this heavy blanket draped in there. And I like peeled around the corner because I could hear the TV on. I peel the blanket back. I'm like, hey, Mom, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on? And it was noticeably warmer in that room. And effectively, she was cocooning herself in her own room because it's just her living there, so she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Cocooning in her room to keep the heat down, to save on oil, and she's just going to suffer in the room with her down jacket on while watching TV. And that's my upbringing in a nutshell around money. So I didn't learn about money until I really was like thrust into this career where it's like now my job, my calling to help people understand the language of money, yet I didn't know it. So I say I learned the language of money through immersion. The same way you go to Spain to learn Spanish, like you live in Spain and you learn Spanish. I became an advisor to learn the language of money. So I learned really quickly, but I will tell you something. As I started learning, I realized like my fear around money started to go away, because I learned my fear about money was not the money and the finances itself. It was fear of the unknown. I had never been taught it. I didn't know anything about it. It wasn't actually hard to understand the concepts. I just had fear about them because I didn't know about them. I was never taught them. So I've made it like my own mission, not just to teach my existing clients and anybody that listen to me about money, which is why I called my firm Reconstructing Wealth. I want to reconstruct how we view and use money, because I know that will create a lasting change and a legacy generational change, because parents will teach their kids, which is what I do. I have this thing called Money Monday where we homeschool our kids. I have 7 with my 8th on the way.
We were talking about
Lots
that
of children.
offline, man. That's huge. Seven kids, 8 kids
Big
coming up,
family.
man. You like those kids cost money.
Those are real numbers.
Those are
Yeah.
real
Those
numbers.
are like you drive a Sprinter van numbers. You don't fit in the regular SUV type
Yeah,
numbers.
they're not just tiny little tax shelters, but they're yeah,
No.
I get it.
Promise that a few $1,000 credit is not paying for the bills for that they incur. But I teach them. I call it Money Monday. But I essentially teach them things that I learn as I learn them, and I have learned over the last decade or so, that I wish I knew at their age. But I teach them in what I feel like easier to understand concepts. Like I'll teach debt, for example, how a mortgage works, how a bank loans you money, and you can use that money to go buy things, but there's an interest rate attached. I explain all that, but I use chocolate chips. And I'm like, and they all listen because they know they get to eat chocolate chips at the end. So they're paying attention to figure out like, how do I eat the most chocolate chips at the end of this? But I use it in terms of like, hey, if you loan this much at this rate, it's going to cost you this many chocolate chips. If the rate's down, you can pay me less chocolate chips over time and you still get the same amount of money. And I explain it like that. And listen, if anybody listening wants to talk on this or learn more about this, it's all on my Instagram. Just follow me. It's my name, Matt Morizio. Follow me, send me a DM. I can even send you a link to a video course I created for nothing. It's all around the mindset and the language of money, and really how to change it. Because I've learned, you probably see this with your kids, even though they're younger. The 4-year-old for sure, I bet, more is caught than taught with kids. And with money, since society doesn't allow us to speak, or doesn't encourage us to speak about money, most homes just don't talk about it. So you end up, I just caught my mother's fear-based relationship with money because, hey, you keep the lights off, you keep the heat down, you hoard yourself, you cocoon yourself in a room to keep to maintain heat in that one. That's what you do, is to save money. That's what I was learning, because that's what I was catching, because we never talked about it. It's not really her fault. Well, it is if she didn't want to try to change it, but she adopted that mindset from her parents, who were products of the Great Depression era parents. So unless you choose at some point along the family lineage to be the one to break that generational change, you'll just you'll just keep perpetuating that same unhealthy relationship with money the same way that my mom did and her parents did. And it's unintentional, but it's like one of those, once you shine the light on it, you can't turn it off. Like now you have to do something about it. The good news is we live in a day where there's no shortage of information. So you can learn and then teach, learn and then teach. And now your kids don't know that you just learned this thing about loans yesterday. They just think, oh, that's cool how that works. You only need to be one step ahead of your kids to be able to teach them.
Oh man, that's amazing. I love that Money Mondays. Love the chocolate chips too. That's like getting anything through to human beings. Like I was taught, if you are going to teach something, always teach it to a 4th grade level.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you can't explain clearly to a 4th grade level what it is that you're doing, then you probably don't really understand it yourself.
Right. Right. And now I can tell you, it is settling in a little bit. And my oldest is 13 now, but this was 2 years ago. He was 11. He came to me for around Christmas. It was around this time of year, 2 years ago. And he came to me and said, hey, Papa. They call me Papa. I don't know why, by the way. We didn't actually encourage that. That was just
Oh,
something that happened. Anyway,
I'll
I
take
don't
it.
have to change when I become a grandparent. I can just stay Papa, I suppose.
Yeah.
But he said, hey, Papa, I really want this baseball bat. And I know Christmas is coming up, but I don't feel comfortable asking you to give me this bat for Christmas. But what I was thinking, I'm like, oh, shoot, here we go. He's like, either what if, because I also teach them earning income is just adding value to somebody's life. Like if you can provide a value that they feel is worth that exchange of money, like you get paid. I don't want to mow my lawn. You do want to mow my lawn. The price is right. Like I'll pay you $20 to mow my lawn. That's a great value exchange. So that's another Money Monday lesson. That money is just an exchange of value. It's not nothing more, nothing less. Don't idolize money. Just seek adding value in people's lives and figure out how you're uniquely called to do it. And you will make money and you will help them. Like that's the win. So anyway, he comes to me and he's like, hey, Papa, I've been thinking about this bat. I don't want you to buy it for me for Christmas. It's too much money. But I was thinking, maybe you could loan me some money and I will pay you back an interest rate. But since I'm your son, maybe you won't give me too high an interest rate. And I'll pay you back over time. I'll mow lawns and pay you back the money plus interest.
I love this kid already.
And he's like, or if you have any work that you don't want to do that I could take off your plate. And he's 11. He's like, he's just regurgitating what I said, but it's settling in. He's like, or if you have that, maybe you could pay me for some of these jobs and then I could use that money to buy the bat. And now I love what he just did, except that he's like checkmate on me because I'm screwed. I'm not going to charge him. I'm not going to loan him the money because of I'm not going to. So I'm screwed. I'm buying the bat. That basically what happens is I'm paying for this bat one way or another. He didn't mean to, but he put me in checkmate. I'm like, well, that one kind of shot me in the foot, I suppose.
Yeah. Why don't people talk about money? Is it in your case, is it you find that there's shame about it or uncertainty, but why don't people talk about money? It seems to be a pretty common thread amongst people families, in inner workings amongst families together. They don't talk about money. People have difficulties going to a financial advisor to talk about money, to take that first step. They don't look at their bank accounts. They don't like looking at it because they don't want to face whatever it is. But there's definitely a barrier there. And I love what you said about once you shine a light on it, you can't look away. All right, now you have to do something.
Yes.
Right now there's an opportunity. You can't see in the dark. You can't see what you can't see. And the only way to do something about it is to face it head on. And maybe it'll be a little uncomfortable, but in your experience, why don't people talk about money?
There's a lot of shame around it. I do know that. I think the first answer is that for some reason society says it's rude to talk to people about their money. It's too personal. Therefore, you don't ask them about their income or their investment strategies or anything like that. That's off limits because it's too personal. That's one part of it. And then having had thousands of conversations with people at this point about their money, there's a ton of shame associated with it because people inevitably across the board feel like they should be farther along than they are. I've had people, now I know my industry is really good at being ridiculously unclear on stuff, so I think that's a problem. They've also really brainwashed people to believe they're not worthy of an advisor unless they have X dollars to manage. Again, that's to me a big swing and miss from an advisor to figure out why are you in this? To make money or to help people, right? You have to make money, businesses make money, but you should be looking to serve somebody and help them. Anyway, I've had people say to me, hey, I know it's not a lot. I know it's only $1 million. I know it's not much. And the same person, different person with the same tone says, I know it's not a lot. It's like I have 10 grand. I mean, it's not a lot, but I worked for it. Same thing. And it's all just how they're preconditioned to believe at whatever age they are and life stage they're at, they should have more money. Whereas $1 million is a lot of money. 10 grand is a lot of money relative to where people are at. Why are we naming it as a lot or not a lot? I think that is because they feel like there's this stigma that they should be doing something that they're not, and they're embarrassed and fearful, and therefore their way to open up to me is to be I know I should be better, but here I am. Can you help me here? And I feel for them. because I get it. I believe it. It took me a lot of work to try to get out of that mindset. So I totally understand it. I think I don't have a great answer, but I think that's my best answer on why we don't talk about it.
I'd agree with you, and I think it's a very common thread amongst anybody, to understand that. I think just most people in the world feel that they should be further ahead than they are.
Yep.
And if everybody understands that that's a common ground and that that's a common feeling, and then they know that it isn't just them, right? You look to your left, that person over there feels like they should be further ahead than they are. Look to the right, that person feels like they should be further ahead than they are. But back to that identity thing too, we tend to wrap ourselves up a lot in our identity between our bank account and our perceived success or our perceived level of happiness. And that's, I've seen a lot of videos lately that have popped up, and there's a big movement of not wrapping yourself up in money. The reality is it's a pretty harmful thing to do for most people. I would say for most people. But the reality is we do need money, and we are living longer as people. We do need to buy things. We do need to live. We need to buy groceries. We need a roof over our head. If we want to have kids, that's something that we need to consider. If they want to go to school, something that they need to consider. If they ever want to buy a house, something that we need to consider, right? If we're retiring at 65, but we're now living to 100, like we need money to survive. And that's the truth. And I think it's a really difficult thing for a lot of people to not tie up their self-worth in how much money they have, and go back to the foundational of like, who am I? Who am I really? Who am I with money? Who am I without money? And I've heard a lot of people bad talk wealth, right? Like you see a car go down the road and immediately you think, douchebag, right? Or you see and the question that I always have for those people is, I used to be that way too. You see something, there's this jealousy and this envy of what somebody has and you don't have it. And but there was this, I was like, all right, well, what would you do with that money? If you had the same kind of money, would you be a douche? No? Okay. Well, then go get some of that, because you're probably somebody that's going to do great things with that money. And if you're going to be a better person than that person, or a perceived better person than that person, it's really up to you to take those next steps, because chances are that person probably took those steps.
Probably, yeah. I call money an amplifier or a magnifier. Money really amplifies who you already are. If you're cheap and stingy with no money, you're going to be worse with a lot of it. If you're generous with no money, you're going to be way more generous with a lot of it. It becomes a magnifier. And what you're saying around the mindsets around people with wealth, that's often something we catch as a kid. We hear our parents talk about it. I remember Pigeon Hill in Waltham, where I grew up. That was the rich area. That's where the, rich people, that was the other side of the tracks, as I was told. Those are where all the wealthy people, that's not us. We're not those people. That's my conditioning. Okay. I'm not wealthy. I'm not rich. I don't want to be that. That must be a bad place. If we're not those people, we don't want to associate with that. Without telling me that, that's what I'm catching by that type of language. Oh no, Pigeon Hill, yeah, that's the other side of the tracks. Yeah, we don't associate with that type of folk. That's the language. You're like, oh, all right. But really, what you're saying, money is not evil. It's the love of money. That's an often misquoted verse, is like, money is the root of all evil. It's not. The verse actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. And if you're chasing money, you probably will be a brutal person to be around. But even churches need money. Every nonprofit organization needs money to live. Mother Teresa didn't fly on private jets with her own money, but sure was money to fly her to India to save a lot of lives. Like, money is the thing that makes the world, that helps you fulfill your mission and makes the world go round today. Back in the day, it wasn't money, dollars. It was gold and salt and other stuff. Maybe in the future it'll be something else. But today is money. So if you can do a lot of good with a lot of money, then a lot more money in the hands of really good people, a lot more good gets done. So go get it if you can get it.
I got a couple more questions. I want to come back to the conversation that we were just having there, or the few phrases that you had brought up about cash and the value of it and gold
Yep.
and silver. But first, how do people start to unwind when you're going through and re-identifying yourself with who it was as a baseball player, and you're looking at yourself as a father, and if you have these troubles with money and you are wrapped up in this identity and there's pressure there, how do you rewind and re-establish your relationship with money in a positive way?
I Man, there's a lot of answers I want to give. I think the one that's kind of like coming to my heart first is that awareness is the baseline trait that anybody needs to have when it comes to their finances. Like, if you are not aware that you have an unhealthy mindset around money, there's nothing you can solve. You can't fix that because it's a blind spot for you. So I think pressure testing yourself to say, when I open my bank account, how do I feel? When I see a wealthy person, what do I think? What's that knee-jerk reaction or response in my life? I think going there first and figuring out where's that come from. If you get anxious and nervous as you open your credit card statement, your bank account, why? If you get disgusted by somebody driving a Bentley, like why? Where does that come from? The next step, as you start to identify like those emotions you're attaching to people with money or to money in general, is to figure out find where in your childhood you can come up with a story that really exemplifies that mindset. Like I told you one of mine, I have a bunch, but the one about my college coming home and seeing my mom, like that's my mindset upbringing about money in a nutshell, in one story. If you can come up with that childhood money story, now you've probably identified where that's rooted, where that feeling is rooted. And once you're there, you can start to pull roots. Like vegetables and weeds grow in the same soil. The weeds are the things you need to pull. You don't need to pull like the good fruit and the vegetables. So you have to identify where is that coming from so that I can pull that weed, because that's a weed that doesn't need to be there. But you can't be there until you sit in silence, man. Like I know it sounds like woo-woo or whatever, but like spend some time in quiet in the morning and just sit and try to figure that out. Like sit with yourself. I know it's weird, but in order to change your wiring with it, you have to go on this introspective journey about who am I? Why am I thinking that way? Not in like my head in the clouds kind of way, but a real like practical, I don't want to feel this anymore and I need to change this. And the only way to change this is to sit with myself and understand where is it coming from first so I can fix it.
Man, I love that. I got to get into the question of cash now.
Yeah.
All right. Currency, right? Current currency, we're seeing money. Elon Musk has come out. We talked about him earlier. He's come out and said, look, in 5 years, 6 years, we're not going to have to work. We're going to have the option to not work because we're talking about universal high income. People are going to have money. We're printing more money. All of a sudden, if cash, everything that we're talking about right now, becomes devalued, because inevitably, if there's an abundance of it and everybody has it, there's not going to be as much value in it. I put a post up not too long ago and I asked about what the new currency will be. If cash is no longer the currency that we're looking at, is it going to be crypto? Is it going to be NFTs? Is it going to be trading cards? What is that new currency going to be? All of the responses that I got was time.
Wow.
Everybody that responded to that had some version of time being the currency. And
wow,
I thought that was pretty powerful.
That's really good.
I think it's like it's probably true to a degree, but
Mm.
tactically, in your mind, what are we looking at? If cash is starting to get devalued, and I don't know, does this look like 5 years out, 10 years out? Is this something that is on your mind? Should we be looking at investing in other things like gold, uh,
Mm.
like Bitcoin, for somebody that is considering where they should start investing their money? Should they even be worried about that at this point? Should that
I
even
think,
be top of mind?
yeah, I don't think that I would, especially if you're just starting out, or in general, I don't think I would waste a lot of mental energy on that. Like, why am I gonna, why am I gonna use cash or stockpile cash if cash is gonna be uh, obsolete one day? Because like Dan Martell, how we get to know each other, like I've heard him say it a number of times, and it stuck with me. Like, don't solve a problem that's not yet a problem. Solve the problem that you have first, so that another problem can show up later. But your problem right now is not whether or not cash is going to be obsolete. The problem right now is to figure out how to make enough income to provide for the life you want to live and to live out your calling. So to that, I would say, like, sure, that could be a great maybe master's level education conversation we could have, and have a healthy thought provoking debate about it. But we're not going to make progress. If you're really trying to figure out your money, you're not going to make forward progress having that conversation. You're going to spin yourself into a spiral, a downward spiral of the same spot. So I would actually challenge people to say, like, might be true, but solve the problem you have, which is inflation will erode your cash worse than anything else. It's the silent killer of your cash. So if you have mattress money, get rid of it, figure out a way to invest it, because if you just walk away from nothing with this conversation, except that every dollar you earn has to become your new employee and you have to assign it a job. Every dollar you earn has to go to work for you. Some of that works to pay next week's grocery bill. Some of that work is to provide for your kid's future. Some of that work is way down the road to provide your future. But every dollar you earn has a job. If you just embody that mindset, I need my money to work for me because I work hard for it. Just walk away and start thinking about that. Like, I just got paid today. How am I going to divvy up these dollars to sign them to proper jobs? Just take that away. You will start to change your relationship, how you view and use money. Because now money is you are now in control of your money. It doesn't control you. And that's a really healthy mindset. So I don't mean to dismiss the cash conversation, because it's a really interesting thought. I think that people are buying time in all the ways. Like, that's certainly what people shoot for when they talk about financial freedom, talk about trying to create the life they don't want to vacation from. Like, what they're saying is they have the time freedom to do the things they want to do. So I think that's true. People are looking for time. That is the ultimate currency. But I think if you're having that conversation today, when you're trying to figure out where do you go with money, you're not seeing the forest of the trees. You're solving a problem that you don't have. The problem you have is figuring out how to earn more income, which I would say you got two choices when it comes to figuring out your money. First off, you have to start knowing what it is that you actually spend to be you. Like, what does it cost to be you? Once you're there, you got two levers to pull. You spend less or you earn more. And you can pull those levers in different combinations. But it's my experience that there's not a lot of fat to trim on most people's budgets. The dirty conversation that nobody wants to have in my world is, like, you probably don't need to spend less as much as you need to earn more income. So whether it's cash or pixie dust, who cares? Figure out how to go get more of it so that you can create the life that you're trying to live.
I couldn't have said it better myself, man. Appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
Sharing all of that.
Yeah.
Hell
My
yeah.
pleasure, man.
Matt, people can reach you on Instagram. Is that the best place to find you? You
Yeah,
mentioned
that's where you're going to get the most authentic me, because you'll see posts about money. You'll also see back stories behind the scenes of my life. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You can go to my website too if you want to understand what I'm about, reconstructingwealth.com. Those are probably the best spots. And like I said earlier, if somebody wants to see a video, three-part video course that I created about, like, your relationship with money, I get into, like, the science of how generosity can rewire your money, your mindset around money, and I get into some blocking and tackling of personal finance, and it's free. I'm happy to send you a link. All of it is to just help people change their mindset around money, because I know firsthand, as I've been as I've learned how the game of money works and I've given more money away, my mindset around it has changed. And it's no longer this emotional burden I carry. And now I'm able to be more present at work, more present with my kids, have better conversations with my wife about our future. And I know that my kids are going to be better and they're not going to carry those burdens of money with them. Like money for them is clarity, it's purpose, it's how to uniquely serve the world in your way. Like that's what money represents to my kids and generations going forward. So if I can do that for people, we could quite literally change the world, you know? Like I don't say that lightly. I really think that's a possibility.
I love that. Matt, brother, thank you so much for spending some time with us today,
Yeah,
shedding
man,
your
thanks
love.
for having me.
Hell yeah. For all our listeners out there that are still with us, as always, rooting for you to win. Stay blessed. Rock and roll. Have a great day. Peace.